It might not be your time to be a guardian angel, but it could be your time to be a guardian ad litem. What's it all about? You'll find out coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at HTC's Carolina Forest Branch location. We're focused on the local Guardian Ad Litem program, and we're visiting with its circuit coordinator, Sam Hodges. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Greg.
Thank you for coming in this morning. That's a firm handshake
early.
at 7 a.m. Yeah.
I know.
That's waking me up if I'm not awake yet. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
It's a real opportunity, and this is old hat to you. You actually know this area pretty well. You've been traveling, I think you said earlier this morning, grew up in Conway.
I did. Well, no, I was born in Conway.
Oh, good. Excuse me. That's right. Myrtle Beach. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
But like Jay, who was on your show earlier, was born and raised in Myrtle Beach. So
yes,
all my
yes.
life.
Jay was with us yesterday,
Yeah.
and actually mentioned your name yesterday, saying that we'd really get a lot out of having you in this morning. And of course, did you know Jay growing up?
You know, if I did, I don't remember him.
Is that right? Yeah. Oh, gal, Jay, I hope you're not watching
I know. Sorry,
now.
Jay.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I don't remember him.
Well, he remembers you, so that's good. Yeah, you must have been a popular girl then. Yeah. Danger.
We won't go there.
Yeah, not going to touch that. Not going to touch that.
No, no.
Of course, the Guardian Ad Litem program has been around quite a while.
The Guardian program started in 1984 in South Carolina. So
Okay.
it's still relatively new compared to some other things, but it started in '84 with a few pilot counties, Horry County included, and then spread throughout the state.
course,
So
I
we
see.
have...
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. I said you were the circuit coordinator. You said that's
Right.
Horry and
Georgetown.
And when it kicked off in '84, was it Horry and Georgetown, or was it just Horry?
You know, I can't answer
Okay,
that.
sure. Excuse me. That's right. Yeah, but it has
I don't
been
know.
at least in Horry County since '84.
Absolutely.
Good, good. And it's
And-
expanded throughout the state.
It has. Every county has an office, and then the 16 circuits have a circuit coordinator.
Based out of Columbia.
Right.
Okay. And there's clearly a need right now, and obviously part of the reason I'm getting you in is the opportunity to talk about volunteer opportunities with the program and how folks would go about becoming a volunteer. But just for folks who may not be familiar with what exactly that means, there's a little Latin in there, that ad litem. But what is a guardian ad litem?
A guardian ad litem is somebody that advocates for abused and neglected children.
Okay.
Most of the time the children are out of the home. There are some occasions where the children are still in the home where a safety plan is initiated and the guardian could be involved with that, but that's not as often as the other.
So there are some instances where a volunteer is representing children in the home, even, I mean, if they remain in the home
Right.
while there are some accusations of abuse or
They
neglect.
set up a safety plan. DSS sets up a safety plan with them, and they have to abide by those rules for them to be able to stay in the home. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But for the most part, the normal setting is the children are out of the home.
In a foster home,
Okay. And this would be children what ages?
0 to 18.
0 to 18.
They take babies right out of the hospital that are addicted to cocaine.
Boy, Sam. And they get them in some type of home environment or a foster
Right,
home.
a foster home.
Are there ever instances where a child is living outside of a foster home but living outside of their own parents' home and is still being represented, or is it almost always in a foster?
They have to be in DSS custody, or DSS has to be involved. And that is Department of Social Services.
Okay, sure. So for viewers who aren't familiar with how DSS works, they have to get those children in a foster home and not in someone else's home because they're still under the care of their parents.
If DSS has custody, they have to place them in a foster home. Sometimes they're relative placements, but most of the time the children are in foster homes.
So there's a serious need there. And volunteers, are they oftentimes skilled in some level of legal wherewithal, or is there any special qualification to become a volunteer?
There are absolutely none other than being 21,
Right.
being able to pass a background check, being able to pass the central registry check for child abuse and neglect,
Okay.
and going through the training.
Is
And
that
just
right?
have to care. You have to care about children.
And just caring about children. boy, when you talk about those early ages, to think about a very early age where the child may not even understand what's going on and the level of neglect or abuse versus a young teenager, an 8 or 9-year-old who's recognizing something serious is happening.
And I think it probably is worse on them because most of the foster parents that we have that take in the babies that are addicted to drugs are trained to handle those kind of things. So, and the babies being young, they're not going to remember part of this going on. So I think it is easier, if there is such a thing, for the babies versus the teenagers.
Sam, if a viewer needs to get off to work now or get family off to school or get out of the house, what's a good number for someone to call to learn more about the Horry and Georgetown County Guardian Ad Litem program?
The number would be 248-7374.
Okay, 248-7374. And for our viewers in the PD and or even southeastern North Carolina, if they had interest and want to learn more about it, they could still give you a call, but you would redirect them to folks in their area.
Yes, I would.
There are Guardian programs in each of the circuits. You said the 16 circuits statewide, so the PD has probably 1 or 2 circuits there.
I'm not sure how the circuits are divided, but I know they've got at least 2.
Right.
So.
Spread out in those 5 or 6 counties that we serve. And obviously there's a real need. Guardian Ad Litem services are not only needed in Horry and Georgetown, they're needed all over the state.
They are. They really are. We're at a point right now where I have about 50 guardians that are actively involved with cases. I need about 50 more to be able to take every child that comes into the system.
Really?
And that's our goal.
Well, how are the 50 children that currently don't have a guardian, how are they being represented?
They're being represented by an attorney guardian that's appointed by the clerk of court. And attorneys, for the most part, and I say this because I am one too, don't have the time to put into a case that the lay guardian would, because most of them are volunteering with different things, but they've got time to go out, spend the time with the child in the foster home. Most attorneys just don't have that kind of time, so I'm sure they would appreciate it if I had enough guardians so they wouldn't have to take in.
So they are court appointed?
Yes, they are.
They are court appointed. Are those most oftentimes family court attorneys, or are they just from the bar?
Anything if they're on the list.
Right. Wow.
And so we get real estate attorneys, we get a lot of anything.
Is that right? And some of the activities that they or any of the other volunteers that would step up to the plate would be required to do, and then what are some of the things that they could even do that aren't necessarily required by the program?
As far as training?
It's as far as being involved with when you said that the attorneys don't have time, oftentimes, versus some of the volunteers might have time, what are some of the things that they would be doing that they're required to do, and are some of the things they could do above and beyond that?
They absolutely have to see the child once a month.
Once a month?
Minimum.
Okay, sure.
And so we prefer that they talk to the foster parents, meet with the parents, and determine what's going on. In some cases, they're medical doctors to meet with, schools, different people that they go out and talk to the counselors and the school nurses and things like that.
What are some of the representation needs that the children have? How do the guardians actually represent the children?
Well, they represent the wishes of the children or their best interest. Okay. The guardians do have an attorney representing them in court. So when I talk about representing their best interest, they are, but they do it through their attorney because they can't just speak in court.
Right. I mean, the guardian ad litems cannot speak in court, right?
Right. So they're speaking for the best interest of the child. That could be they need a psychological evaluation. They need certain medical evaluations. A lot of them come in and need counseling. And so these are things that the guardian would find out that they could recommend to either the Department of Social Services or put in a recommendation for their court report.
Okay, sure.
Because they're all required to do a court report.
And the guardians could put in a lot more time. They could be more involved. You've seen, I guess, guardians that get really active, but they don't work on more than one case at a time?
They can have up to 3.
Okay.
I hope that's going to get a little bit larger, but right now it's 3 cases that they can have. That's the national standard by National CASA, so they don't want them to go over that because they don't feel like they can really devote the time that they need.
And they would still have to create 3 court reports for those. There are 3 attorneys, 3 separate attorneys. And I guess attorneys rarely would handle more than 3 cases, if that many either.
I think they get 8 appointments a year.
Okay.
So it's spread out, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Because
right.
I'm not on that appointment list anymore. So.
You said you'd been earlier this morning. You said you'd been the attorney for the program before becoming the coordinator, circuit coordinator.
Right.
What exactly does that mean?
Every guardian has an attorney. Every lay guardian has an attorney, and so I was their attorney under a contract basis with getting money from the state, and I represented them. So when we went into court, I told the judge what the guardian wanted or didn't want, and I presented the court report to the judge.
Very important.
So, and
yes.
in cases, we did have several trials, and in those cases, maybe the guardian had to testify.
So again, the basic steps are DSS finds out about abuse or neglect happening in a home.
Or a police officer.
Or a police officer, okay. But someone
Right.
in an authoritative position finds out about it. They recommend the child being removed from the home.
Right.
Step in and make that happen. And then they go into a foster home.
Right, most of the time.
Or into a DSS oversees homes, or do they have?
They license foster homes.
Okay.
They do.
Right.
And then in some cases they can place with relatives to keep the child from having to be so traumatized by moving to a totally new environment.
Right. And for a viewer, I know this is ABCs, but for a viewer who may not be familiar with a foster home, how is that set up? That is parents or adults who serve as parents. Or what,
You got it.
Is it just that simple?
It is.
But can they serve for multiple children or just for...
They're licensed according to how much room they have in their house.
Okay.
And they're also licensed by the Department of Social Services.
Okay, okay. And foster parents oftentimes are able to bring children in, even if they have their own children under the roof, they're able to
Yes.
to bring them all under one roof, or if they have no children.
Right.
Right.
Depending upon the size of the house and what kind of bed space they have.
And I don't want to pry too much, but is that something they're paid for, or is that something
Yes,
they're... Okay,
they are.
sure. So it's a type of occupation, kind of. I mean,
wouldn't
obviously out of
say-
love.
They don't make enough money to make
Right. So
occupation
principally out of love. They
Right.
love children and really care about children. But there is something to help offset the food or otherwise. A
There
little
is.
something. Right. Yeah, again, that's what I said. I don't want to too much, but I'm trying to think how that would open up. Are there ever needs for foster parents?
There are always needs for foster parents as well.
Good.
But unfortunately, you can't be a guardian and a foster parent.
Of course, no.
And as much as I talk about guardians, I will mention foster parents, but I can't.
Right.
I need guardians as bad as they need foster parents.
Okay, but if a viewer was interested in possibly being a foster parent, they could still call you, and you
Absolutely.
will send them over to the appropriate
Absolutely.
folks at DSS, and that would be the 248-7374 number. You said you also have a website that a foundation supports, I think.
Right. We have a foundation that was set up to support the Guardian program in case there were things that the guardians needed for the children that we were unable to get otherwise. And so they've set up a foundation for that, and they provide training for the guardians as well.
Okay.
That's South Carolina HeroesForChildren.org.
Okay. Is South Carolina written out?
It's just SC.
Okay.
SC Heroes with an E
Right.
for Children.org.
Good. SC Heroes with an E for Children.org. That's critical. And obviously, again, picking up the phone, even if they picked up the phone right now at 7:15, or and they could leave a message if
They
you're not
can.
in there. Obviously, you're with us right now. You're
Yeah.
not going to be there. But 248-7374. Of course, your responsibilities as circuit coordinator, I think you said, are both Horry, this geographically largest county in the state, and the fourth
Right.
largest county, Georgetown County. So you're covering a pretty big territory there, Sam.
It is. We have a coordinator in Georgetown that I work with.
Okay.
So she handles the day-to-day activities down there.
Right.
But I'm down there to see her and just provide support, and I'm down there to do training occasionally.
Is there a
as
need
well.
in Georgetown County as well, or is it principally Horry?
Actually not. They
Really?
have more guardians
Wow.
than they need for the children
Why
down
is
there.
that?
You know what? I can't tell you. The guardians, or the Department of Social Services down there, their caseload is so much lower, and they only have court once a month. We're in court every Thursday,
Is that right?
and on Mondays for emergency hearings. So,
Do emergency
Georgetown,
hearings happen often, Sam?
every Monday.
Really?
For children that have been taken into care over the weekend or Thursday and Friday, because they have to have the first hearing in 72 hours.
Wow.
So we're always in court 95% of the time on Mondays for emergency hearings.
Sam, so you are busy, particularly on Mondays and Thursdays. I'm glad today's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
One of the respite days for you.
Actually not. I spend Wednesdays typing court reports.
Wow, getting ready for tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, getting ready for tomorrow. So if you weren't here right now, you'd probably be getting ready to get into the office. I think you said it's principally an 8:30.
8:30 to 5.
Right, setting. So there's a real opportunity if folks want to pick up the phone now and call. They'd be leaving you a message to say, what can I do? Hopefully they're calling and saying, what can I do? I'm available.
Right.
What are some, you said, of course, being 21, making sure the background checks. Break that down again, please.
They have to be over 21 or 21 and
or
over.
over, okay.
Be able to pass a criminal background check.
Criminal background
Right,
check.
that's through SLED.
Sure.
And then make sure that their name does not appear on the Child Abuse and Neglect Central Registry. So if you've ever had an indicated case of abuse or neglect, your name would be entered on the registry, and we make sure that the name isn't on there before we let them become a guardian.
Mm-hmm. But even as guardians, are they going to have, what are some of the things they're going to do as guardians? Are they going to have one-on-one time outside of the foster home? Or are they going to, okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Let's break down what a typical day, I'm sure there's not a typical.
There's
typical
not.
Nothing. Seeing you smile on that, no typical anything, but a day for a guardian ad litem. Could you break down
It would depend on whether the case was in the beginning or ending stages. In the beginning, they need to have contact with the child. That can either be in the foster home, it could be at Department of Social Services when they're having a supervised visit, or it could be at a therapy session with a counselor.
Okay.
They're not allowed to transport children, so...
Guardian ad litems cannot transport children.
Transport children, no. So they need to see them in one of those settings, but they certainly could walk out of the foster parent's home and walk out around the house and talk to them by themselves.
Okay.
Most foster parents are good about leaving the guardian alone with the child so they can have some alone time.
Good. Very important. And that one-on-one interaction is so critical. And what are some of the things that the guardian is to do with the child? What are some, I mean, if a viewer right now felt that they may not be able to interact well with children, what kind of interaction is both required and needed?
Really not required, just face-to-face contact at least once a month.
Sure.
Some children are needier than others. Some older children have different needs than the little ones. So, and obviously if you get a baby that you're a guardian for, all about you can do is go in there and observe the baby and make sure the baby's okay. They're in a whole lot of interaction.
Sure.
So we actually had a guardian that went to the hospital before the child got out of the hospital and went up there and just held the child.
Okay.
So those are rare circumstances, but it just depends on the case as to how much interaction is really necessary.
Right. Is that guardian seeking anything in particular out of the child, or just the fact that they have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and so they're listening to the child more than anything? Right.
They listen. They do. They're not going to question them about what happened, especially not in sexual abuse cases.
Right.
They're just there to sort of get a feel of how the child is doing and what the child may need.
To be able to provide that information to the attorney who is representing them in court.
Right. And that information goes into the court report, and which I type, and then pass it on to the attorney in court.
So for a viewer who may be concerned right now that, I don't want to get in the middle of family strife, they are not getting in to say, tell me about the neglect or the abuse, and I'm going to then, they are, again, just there to listen. So, oftentimes viewers be afraid of, a parent getting wild or coming after them.
I found that they don't really get that angry with guardians.
Good,
Their anger has already been expressed towards DSS for taking the child in the first place.
Right.
And when they go in, the guardian just explains to them that they're there for the child, period. We're here to advocate for children. That's it.
Right.
And so they do talk to the parents, and they may ask the parents what happened, or the parents may voluntarily tell them what happened. But I found the hostility is generally more in the beginning than it is when the guardian gets involved. Because I've had that question come up in training.
I bet,
about what to do if something happens.
Oh, I bet. A lot of folks would be worried about just that situation.
Right.
I'm glad you shared that. Principally, their focus is on, I am upset at DSS for taking the child out of my house.
They are.
Right. Even though they know something probably happened to precipitate that. There's surely instances, and of course, you want to, at some level, have some try to empathize, but you can't really, I guess, sympathize for the parent. Just tough to imagine what would have precipitated, particularly if, well, anyway, just terrible. The volunteer need is critical right now. You really have a critical need.
It is. Our goal in South Carolina is to have a volunteer guardian for every child that comes into care.
One-on-one instead of that chance of doing 3, right?
Right. Well, they can still have 3 cases,
Sure.
but just every child having a guardian. In cases where the guardians, like you talked about before, are not able to take cases, then attorneys represent these children in court. And the attorneys with their busy time just don't have that one-on-one interaction most of the time with the case.
Okay, so there is, with this critical need of trying to make sure that every child has a guardian.
Absolutely.
The opportunity for a viewer right now to call, they can do training on how regular a basis?
I'm in the middle of a night training right now. Day training starts, in fact, it starts today.
Oh, okay, good,
yes,
good.
It does. And that runs from 9:30 to 4:30 every Wednesday for 5 weeks.
Okay, so if a viewer right now says, I'm free in 2 hours,
they can be
I
there.
can call on Wednesday the 16th. I can give a call right now.
That's
call
right.
your office at 248-7374.
Right.
And they'd need to come where?
311A Beatty Street.
Okay, in Conway.
That is in Conway.
That's great. Well, you've given us enough time so we can get a shower and
That's
get
right.
cleaned up and head
You
over
can come
there.
in jeans.
Good.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's right. Take this jacket
I don't
off.
care.
Good.
The training itself is 30 hours long.
Okay.
We cover everything from the legal end of it to child development to disorders that children may have, how to communicate, how to write court reports. We cover everything that we think the guardian is going to need to be able to handle a case. And they're always welcome to come back to us and ask questions. I mean, we're there to help them.
But they really do need this 30 hours of training.
It's required.
Yeah. Not only is it required, I mean, it's very important. If someone thinks, well, I can't write up a long court report, are we talking about something that's relatively easy to do?
Oh, yeah. We have a format for it.
Sure.
And really, it is not that hard.
Right. So that is something they should be able to get over. What are some of the biggest concerns that someone might have, Sam? We just have a couple of minutes. If a viewer's watching right now, if you're trying to imagine you've heard probably every obstacle imaginable. What are some of the most common obstacles that have an easy response to them?
Most of it is the safety issue about wondering whether the parents are going to be hostile or not. The other part is wondering if they have enough time. And each case varies as far as the amount of time that you're going to spend. But, you know, on average, between the first 30 days, it's about 9 to 15 hours. Now, that's spread out over 30 days.
Sure.
And that is the busiest time. Because after that, normally hearings are only held once a year.
Okay.
So the busiest time is the first 30 days.
Right. And they really have to love children.
I think you have to care for them to be able to do
care
this
for
job.
children, sure, to be able to do this. It is a volunteer role, so you're talking about they do the training one time, the 30-hour training one time, and that's good for how long?
It is good for a year.
For 1
year. We do
year.
require 12 in-service hours every year after that.
Right.
And we provide the in-service training as well, trying to get speakers, counselors, doctors to come in and talk about subjects that they're interested in that may help them.
So you then have to come back in for another 30 hours of training at the end of the year?
Not 30, just 12 hours in service.
Oh, yeah, 12 hours in service, right, after the 30 hours. So if you do 12 hours a year, you're only going to have the 30 hours one time.
No, the 30 hours is separate from the 12.
Okay, right.
You go through the initial 30-hour training.
Right.
And then after that, 1 year from then, you have to go 12 hours every year.
12, okay, good.
To stay informed.
Every year to stay. That's great. I just want to make sure that's clear for folks who are trying to think about the amount of time that they need to put aside.
Right.
It's very important.
It's not as time-wise, it doesn't take as much time as they seem to think that it's going to.
Sure.
That's always a question and a concern. Other concerns have been about just being able to get along with the children or what to do with the children when they go see them. We always advise taking coloring books and crayons and let the child color while they're talking to you, because they will talk more to you if they don't have to look at you. Of course, you could probably do that with teenagers as well, but I don't know that they'd be as likely to want a coloring book as the younger children would. So the training, if it's at night, it's 2 nights a week for 3 hours both of those nights, and that goes for 5 weeks. If it's during the day, it's 5 weeks also, but it's 9:30 to 5, 9:30 to 4:30 every Wednesday for 5 weeks.
Okay.
And that would be starting today.
Okay, today's the day. They need to pick up the phone and call. Sam, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Very definitely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Sam Hodges coming up next. Look at this pretty girl on the cover. That could be a loved one. You could make a difference in a child just like this life. Pick up the phone, 248-7374. Think of that. These key words, you probably can't see them. Emily was abandoned by her mother. So were her 3 sisters. They're living in 4 separate foster homes. That's where a guardian ad litem volunteer steps in. You heard Sam talk about it. Actually, you didn't hear her talk about it. She mentioned it off camera. It was something she really wanted to share with you. The guardian ad litem serve as a constant in these children's lives. Oftentimes the child's jumping, unfortunately, for whatever circumstance. They're moving from foster home to foster home while everything's proceeding before they get into court. There's a lot of folks who love these children in one way or another, but they never find a way to get it to them. They just don't have a chance to interact with the children, unfortunately, because they're in a rough situation. That's a constant. But the constant that a guardian ad litem volunteer can make in their lives is something that you can be a part of. 248-7374. Folks like Sam and others that every day are interacting with tremendous volunteers. Pick up the phone. Today the training starts at 9:30 on Beatty Street in Conway. You can be a part of that. If you don't have the time, you can also find a way to make a difference by going online to scheroesforchildren.org. Take the time.